According to Exposure Music, 76% of musicians are not able to sustain themselves financially through their music-related activities. And if you do make it big as a musician, it can be very difficult to make that career last. Many artists come and go over the years, which may leave you wondering, what do artists do after they fall off? Some may pursue other careers in the music industry, while others may switch lanes entirely. So today we're going to be looking into this, starting off with Blueface. Real quick, I want to shout out my guy 1111 because this video was inspired by his about rappers. I just thought it'd be interesting to look at a few different examples from his video and see like what artists in the wider music industry do. So in this video, we got tons of different examples of things artists can do to leverage their past fame and experience to pave a new path for themselves. Also, while most artists in this video pretty much did fall off, there were a couple that pivoted before they like had the chance to fall off. But I don't know, I think it's interesting to see what these guys in particular did after their music careers, and you guys will see what I mean, so let's continue. Blueface blew up in 2018 with his track Respect My Crippin'. Since releasing that song, it's gotten over 55 million plays on Spotify and even a remix with Snoop Dogg. Blueface's strange style, where many thought it sounded like he was rapping off beat, really caught people's attention. He then dropped the track Bleed It, which I honestly forgot about till researching this video, but that track was a banger. He continued his run by dropping the song Tatiana, which I'm sure you guys remember. It got remixes from Cardi B and YG, and collectively all the versions of that track have racked up hundreds of millions of streams. While he was still hot, he was planning on releasing his debut studio album Find the Beat, which was kind of a meme title based on what people were saying about his music, but the album got delayed a few times, and when it did release in 2020, it only sold 12,000 copies first week, which wasn't that great. And this is when his fall off seemed to begin. Part of this, in my opinion, was all of his controversies, which seemed to draw the attention away from his music. He said himself in an interview with the New York Times, getting to this point probably took about 25% music. He attributed the rest of his success to marketing, promotion, and being yourself. And like I said, Blueface was great at this part because he was great at marketing and promoting himself on the internet. And he did a lot of things outside of music that helped keep his name in the headlines. So as money was likely slowing up along with his numbers music-wise, Blueface decided to launch an OnlyFans. But it wasn't your conventional OnlyFans in the way you might be thinking, because Blueface created a reality show on there called Blue Girls Club. It was supposed to be similar to the reality TV show called Bad Girls Club, and according to Business Insider, the show, shot in October 2020, followed 10 women over 18 episodes in 21 days as they fought, played drinking games, and hung out in the same house with the rapper. Instead of a cash prize like most shows, the women were promised that they could promote their social media profiles and possibly get famous. To watch the show, you had to pay $50 a month on a subscription to his OnlyFans page. The show was actually extremely successful for Blueface, and he made over $800,000 in less than a year. He said on IG, "If you can find a way on OnlyFans without showing your private parts, I highly recommend. Crazy work, good salary." So like many others you'll see on this list, Blueface was able to leverage his previous fame into a new stream of revenue. And Blueface really demonstrated the power of social media and making money off of it. However, that doesn't mean his show came without controversy. According to Business Insider, at one point there were 4,000 users signed up paying between $30 and $50 a month, so he was making well over $100,000 a month. And apparently the girls weren't seeing any of this money. It was a very poorly put together production. There wasn't much food for the girls, there was tons of alcohol, they took the girls' phones, and there was constant fighting. Chrisean Rock, who actually met Blueface on this show, lost a tooth. One girl Business Insider interviewed said that the security guards would instigate fights. Apparently, there were 14 big fights that were posted on the OnlyFans, with more off camera. One person on Reddit said, "I watched the whole first season. There literally is so much to say about it. There's barely any rules set in place for real, and it makes no sense what their goal actually is. Even the girls are confused sometimes on what exactly they win. The formatting makes no sense, and I could get further into it, but it's not nearly as important as how he's not put a single thought into the care of these women." Throughout a couple of episodes, the girls confront Blueface and his friends about what they're going to eat, when is food going to get there, etc. He got these girls beating on each other at 7 a.m. and eating Cheetos for dinner. In the first 72 hours, 2 of the girls already had broken teeth and bones. Eventually, those 2 of the girls did get signed to Blueface's label, but he didn't help anyone's careers like he had promised. So basically, while he may have made bank, the show was a disaster. Eventually, when the show was over, Blueface pivoted to a bunch of other things like celebrity boxing, and of course, after meeting Chrisean Rock on the show, they began dating and had an extremely publicized and controversial relationship. Most recently, he actually landed himself in prison with a 3-year sentence, so while his pivot worked for a while, his inability to avoid controversy and legal issues ended up winning in the long run. More on that in a future video. So while Blueface was able to pivot and make some good money, he ended up making some bad choices. But MC Hammer did the opposite. MC Hammer is an artist who actually started out in a Christian rap group called the Holy Ghost Boys back in the 80s, which is interesting to keep in mind going forward. He was also rapping solo on the side, and by 1986 decided to put out his first album as MC Hammer. It sold 60,000 units, and Hammer got his first taste of success. But Hammer decided to go a bit more commercial on his next project. He further developed his flashy style with the Hammer pants, which were actually named after him, which is pretty cool. And then in 1988, he released the album Let's Get It Started, which was way more successful. But then when he released his third album in 1990, called Please Hammer Don't Hurt Him, he went crazy, especially because he had the hit single You Can't Touch This. He also had tracks like Pray that were super successful as well. I mean, I'm sure you guys are fairly aware of how successful MC Hammer was in the late 80s and early 90s. But then with all the crazy money he was making, he started spending it like crazy too. According to Wikipedia, MC Hammer originally had a net worth of $33 million, but after spending so much money on his staff, friends, family, and himself, he ended up $13 million in debt.
He made sure he spent his pile, which included buying a Boeing 727, and by 1996 he was broke.
Well, maybe had I done things in a more meticulous fashion and watched the bottom line, we wouldn't have had to file a bankruptcy. That was a mistake.
He even had 17 cars, which is a little bit overkill in my opinion. So MC Hammer had to file for bankruptcy in April of 1996, and it seemed like because of this, Hammer decided to return to his roots. Over the years, Hammer has expressed that during his immense success, he strayed away from his faith in God. But after his bankruptcy, he came back to faith after realizing that money isn't really what makes you happy. He also attributed part of his return to Christianity to the death of Tupac, who was a friend of his. He said to the Los Angeles Times, "Whether the bankruptcy played any role in my refocusing, that's great. Hallelujah, I hope it did. But the most important part of what occurred to me was love, missing the love of God in the way that I had known it."
On one day, I just woke up and said, you know what? This is not me. You know, it was just an accumulation. Enough is enough.
We're here to celebrate Jesus. This is not about MC Hammer.
I want to travel the world. I've been around the world 7 times, 8 times. You know, there wasn't anything that I haven't done except for I knew in my heart that I was no longer a part of the body of Christ.
So in 1997, Hammer became an ordained minister and began preaching in churches regularly. He also created a TV ministry called MC Hammer and Friends. And probably one of the cooler and more interesting things is that he began prison ministry as well. He even married people too, which is crazy. Could you imagine getting married by MC Hammer? That would be cool. Now, I will admit that Hammer isn't the best example for this video because he has continued putting out music after his bankruptcy, although he did shift his focus to the church. He had always had Christian themes in his music, like with one of his tracks being the song Pray, but he doubled down on these messages in his newer music. He even said that he wanted to make sure that in his music going forward, he had at least one Christian track per album. So it's really cool to see that while the money started drying up, MC Hammer realized what was important in his life and was able to pursue that, while still being able to continue releasing music as well, even though that wasn't the main focus, and the real main focus was spreading his message. And while MC Hammer decided to pivot almost entirely after his main music career, New Radicals decided to continue working in the music industry behind the scenes. New Radicals is a band you may remember from their hit song You Get What You Give, but the main duo of this band was Greg Alexander and Danielle Brisebois, and they formed the band in '97. They had some solo music out before they created the band, which allowed for them to get a record deal. They got a nice advance to create their album Maybe You've Been Brainwashed Too. It was fairly successful and peaked at 41 on the Billboard 200, and eventually it went platinum. They followed up with their hit single You Get What You Give. You know that song that goes boom, 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 ba-dum, 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 ba. That's the song. The song has nearly 500 million streams on Spotify and peaked at 36 on the Billboard Hot 100. Not gonna lie, I would have thought this song was a bit more popular, but regardless, it was still very successful. However, after all of this success, the band decided to break up. The reason that they broke up is because they, more specifically Greg, didn't think that they could reach the level of success they did with Get What You Give. The lead singer Greg said at a press release, "It was an experience playing the artist, but I accomplished all of my goals with this record, and I'm ready to move on and make the next step in my career. I've been writing songs for and working with artists as varied as R&B acts to Belinda Carlisle intermittently for the last 9 years, and I'm looking forward to starting the day-to-day creative process of building a successful production company. He also said that he was about to be 30 and wasn't a big fan of all the traveling and hardly getting any sleep. So like he said, he had already been a writer and he wanted to get back to being behind the scenes in the music industry. This is pretty common for a lot of artists in the industry who may not be as successful as they once were, so a lot of them begin producing, writing songs, or creating production companies. And New Radicals, more specifically Greg, is a good example of this. To be fair, New Radicals probably could have had more success if Greg let them have the chance, so they didn't quite fall off. However, Greg seemed to think they would have had they continued putting out music. So Greg went on to be a writer. His previous producer from when he was a solo artist, Rick Knoll, helped him get some opportunities as a songwriter, as Rick had written a ton over the years. Rick had actually helped co-write You Get What You Give, so the two started writing songs as a duo. They even wrote the song The Game of Love by Santana, which even won a Grammy. Greg has gone on to write for people like Rod Stewart, Texas, Enrique Iglesias, and more. So it's cool to see how Greg was able to use his previous connects in the music industry to help move forward his career as a songwriter. And New Radicals has performed a couple of times since the breakup, and they even performed at Joe Biden's inauguration. So while New Radicals, more specifically Greg, was able to forward their careers in the music industry behind the scenes, Fetty Wap seemed to have to resort to some much more drastic measures to keep the money coming in. Fetty Wap is another artist who blew up off his commercial single Trap Queen. He was notable for his unique singing voice that was super catchy, so this song became an instant hit. The song peaked at 2 on the Billboard Hot 100 and spent 25 weeks in the top 10. I mean, I'm sure you guys remember how big this song was. Anyways, because of the success of this song, some of Fetty Wap's following songs like 679, My Way, Again, and more began blowing up. But it seemed like as time went on, the hype died down. With each track he put out, it seemed like the streams were going down, even when he was collaborating with artists like Nicki Minaj. And as the numbers started slowing up, so did his money, especially because he had so many expenses from his lavish lifestyle.
I went to the bank again, and that shit was like, hold. I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what the fuck do that mean? Like,
so you try to take money out and they're like, oh no, there's a hold on it.
Yeah, and then I went to call to my other account, like, yo, can you send me this? He's like, yo, bro, I gotta talk to you. And I'm like, what you talking about? And yeah, so for like, I think for like 6 months, yeah, I was broke, bro.
Damn, they had your whole like account on freeze. Yeah. It wasn't like no Texas shit or nothing.
Nah.
Like that. Damn, so you just, and by the way, this happens to a lot of like, you know, entertainment, like you don't know, probably paying so much fucking bills, you don't know exactly what your name is on, what you owe.
I was doing like 150,000 a month bills, but I was, see, that's the dumbest shit I was doing. Like, matter of fact, yeah, if I had to, it was jewelry and like apartments. I had a lot of fucking apartments.
Fetty seemed like he was a good dude who was really trying to put his friends on, buying them stuff like apartments, jewelry, bringing them on stage, and putting them on songs.
Fetty would travel with 15 to 30 people, paying for all of their expenses, buying them all chains, spending $45,000 on jeans just so everyone could have a pair, bringing them all on stage during his shows. He wanted to show everyone the lifestyle, not because he felt pressure, but because he genuinely loved his people.
There was even this whole controversy where Fetty got a remix to 679 with Drake, but Drake's team didn't want Fetty's friend Monty on the track, so Fetty never officially put out the remix, which definitely hurt him commercially. So as I'm sure you guys could imagine, with all the money he was spending, like $150K a month, Fetty started going broke. He even responded to the criticism when he started falling off, with someone saying in his IG comments, "I actually don't know how you fell off." To which Fetty Wap said, "Bad business managers, greed, and selfishness. But it's almost over. I got rid of all that goofy shit around me. Now I can focus on the music and I'm going the fuck up. Just watch." And to be fair, he did have a mini comeback with the banger Sweet Yams in 2022. But unfortunately, it was all for naught because in 2021, Fetty Wap was arrested on drug charges. See, when Fetty Wap began declining, he started selling drugs. Then when he was arrested in 2021, he was indicted on charges of 1 count of conspiracy to distribute and possess controlled substances. They said, as alleged, the defendants transported, distributed, and sold more than 100 kilograms of deadly and addictive drugs, including heroin and fentanyl, on Long Island, deliberately continuing the opioid epidemic that has devastated our communities and taken too many lives. His lawyer said that he had been supporting relatives and kids with the money that he made from it, and he said to the judge, "I only ever wanted to help my family. I never asked myself if it was all the way right." Also, prosecutors were trying to say that the song Sweet Yams was about drugs, which is so dumb. It was clearly about yams. But the judge pointed out how Fetty Wap was only involved with the drug stuff for like 6 months, so he only got 1 year above the minimum, which was a 6-year sentence to prison. He's since said in an interview with XXL, "Nobody made me do it. Nobody forced me to do it. When I put myself in that situation, I really think for the long run. I'm thinking I could just run up a few $1,000,000 and I'm gonna be good forever." So it's definitely kind of sad how he lost all his money in his career, and the fact he has kids too and is locked up for 6 years. So hopefully Fetty can get out early and get back to making some banger tracks, because that Sweet Yams comeback, that was good, and I was really thinking Fetty Wap might be back, so I hope he comes back. And while Fetty Wap may have made some bad choices following his music career, Mark Wahlberg got very lucky following his ventures in music. Now you may think I'm crazy putting Mark Wahlberg in here, but hear me out, because Mark Wahlberg was Marky Mark before he got into acting.
Hey yo, what's up? This is me, Marky Mark, my man HB, and you're chilling on Team Vit.
So Mark Wahlberg's older brothers, Robert and Donnie, were actors and singers respectively. Donnie was one of the founding members of New Kids on the Block when he was just 15. He let his younger brother Mark join the group when Mark was just 13, but Mark left pretty quickly because he realized he wasn't that good. Ironically, after committing a spree of racially motivated attacks in the late 80s as a teenager, Mark decided to become a rapper. In 1990, Mark began making music with Scotty G, Hector the Booty Inspector, Ashley Ace, and DJ T. They were called Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch. By this point, New Kids on the Block was already fairly popular, and I could be totally wrong about this, but it is possible that their popularity helped out Marky Mark and the Funky Bunch, although Mark would disagree.
Now, I mean, my brother has a lot of success and stuff, and I have an album coming out, and I worked hard for it though, you know what I'm saying? A lot of people will think, oh, his brother's rich and this and that, you know. He's just, you know what I'm saying, everything's been handed to him. You know, a lot of people say that to me now. I worked hard for it though, you know what I'm saying?
Regardless, they released their debut album, Music for the People, in July of 1991. It charted at 21 on the Billboard 200, and they had 2 top 10 singles. Good Vibrations, which hit #1 on the Hot 100, and Wild Side, which hit #10. Also, random fun fact, according to Wikipedia, they released a video game called Make My Video, which apparently was regarded as one of the worst video games of all time. Anyways, their next album, You Gotta Believe, only charted at 67 on the Billboard 200 and had 1 single hit 49, so it didn't do nearly as well. Following this album, apart from a track on the Super Mario Bros. Soundtrack for some reason, the group disbanded, likely because of the lack of success on their previous album. Then Mark continued making music, producing for a label called East West Records. Then he started working with the reggae singer Prince Ital Joe, and they made an album together that did very well in Germany, along with the track United. Honestly, it's kind of hard for me to say Mark fully fell off because of the success he had in the US and then, you know, the success he had in Germany afterwards. But most white rapper acts like himself, like Vanilla Ice for example, seem to have a short shelf life. I mean, I don't think this was going to last super long.
I think it's time I kick a little verse. See, some do hip-hop and forget where it started. The claiming a white complexion ain't the reason why their records charted, please. I mean, it's so easy to see. When a white dude raps, the public sees it as a novelty. Even me, although I take it seriously, some just like me because of my RACE, but I won't quit and I won't stop, because I do hip-hop records just because I love hip-hop.
So Mark decided to pivot. First of all, people thought he was sexy. I mean, I even saw people calling him a sex symbol of the 90s. So he did some modeling for Calvin Klein. He actually was picked out for this sponsorship because of him displaying his physique in the Good Vibrations music video, which is really interesting. But the thing people know him most for is acting. It's likely because of his connections from his brothers and also being relatively popular in the music industry. He was able to start acting in 1993, and throughout the 90s he started landing bigger and bigger roles. It was after his first role in The Substitute that he dropped the name Marky Mark, and it seemed like he made up his mind about being an actor instead of a rapper. And honestly, I'm sure you guys know how successful Mark Wahlberg has become after becoming an actor, and maybe you've eaten one of his burgers over at Wahlburgers. They're pretty good, I'm not gonna lie. So it's interesting to see how he used his previous popularity and success to pivot into some modeling, but you know, a lot of acting. And I think it's interesting to see how all of these artists, for the most part, other than I guess Fetty Wap, were able to leverage their success and turn that into either a different career or a similar career or something else. Similar to Mark, Vanilla Ice is another artist who kind of fell off and pivoted to television, more specifically reality TV. I actually covered him in my video called Famous Musicians Who Work Odd Jobs Now, alongside other artists with similar and interesting stories to the one in this video. So if you like this video, make sure to check out the one that's on the screen right now. Other than that, maybe leave a like and subscribe. But I appreciate you guys watching. This has been Matty Balls, and I'll see you guys next time.